Welcome back to the Peruvian Waltz Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Birdie, joining you from Lima, Peru. And I'm disappointed in Christopher here because he's at a different location, but it's not Jupiter. How are you, Christopher?
Pretty good, pretty good. I'm joining you from a random office in Lehi, Utah today.
So it's a random. Let's count. There's the university, his house, his apartment in Salt Lake. There is the random hotel in Chicago.
The Oval Office.
The Oval Office as well.
And the Oval Office.
I cannot forget about that one. Okay, well, let's introduce Peter now. How are you, Peter?
Doing well. Joining you from my room, the same room I've been on for every single episode. So I am boring and bland, unlike Christopher Viscardo. So
Christopher's creative and he's committed. So why should we complain? We shouldn't.
We know that
I'm in the same room all the time as well. But we were like talking together. That's gonna sound really weird. Let's not cut that out, Peter. Okay, let's keep that in the cut version.
Oh, of course, in the cut version.
Yeah, there's for those who don't listen to the SoundCloud, just listen to live. We have uncut and cut, kind of like those animes and that cut out everything in the TV because they're also kids networks. But anyways, let's not ramble on. Let's just start with the pod. So the Segunda División started this past weekend, and it's simultaneous as always. Usually there's a match on Saturday, but this time there wasn't. The only match that was at the same time as the others is Cesar Vallejo versus Copsol. So I'll read the result quickly, and then I'll ask for your thoughts on everything. Cesar Vallejo got a 0-0 draw with Copsol in Trujillo. Juan Aurich got a 1-0 win. I almost a 1-0 draw, but 1-0 win. And it's Cerrado Parque Mayo in I don't even know what they're playing. It doesn't look at the ground, but it's around Lambayeque. That's all I know. It's more above than Trujillo, but it's around Lambayeque. Then there's Alfredo Salinas who beat Alianza Atletico 2-0, and I'm going to reserve my comments on Alianza Atletico as I actually have a few things to say about them. Atletico Grau beat Santa Rosa 2-1. At home, Sport Victoria kind of got a surprising draw against Los Caimanes. I probably should say that and vice versa because Los Caimanes were the one that got their shock result. Sport Victoria was expected to win that. Deportivo Vallejo got a 4-1 win against Sport Loreto. Impressive, but nothing too surprising. And Unión Guadalajara got a 1-1 draw against Carlos Manucci. So, firstly, I guess we could ask, what was the result that surprised you the most in this set of games? For me, there's not too many surprises, but there's a few that I'll go on to in a second. I kind of already mentioned one game I found surprising, but Christopher, you go first. What games do you find surprising in these batch results?
The two games that I was the most surprised about was probably Cesar Vallejo tying that game against Copsol. I think both Universidad Cesar Vallejo and Copsol are serious organizations that put a lot of money into the teams, and they treat them almost like businesses. And so Cesar Vallejo spent a lot of money in hiring Chemo del Solar to be this season's coach. And so starting with a draw, to me feels like a little bit of a surprise. I don't think they're going to fire Del Solar just because of one match or anything like that. But I was kind of expecting more of a side that put so much money and effort into their team starting months ago. The other surprise for me was probably the Hualgayoc game because Calera, right? Everybody was talking about Emmanuel Herrera and the 3 goals that he scored against Alianza Lima, but Calera actually scored a hat-trick too in Segunda División. And this is a Brazilian player who has played for some teams in the past in Primera División, in the first division. And last year he actually played for my home team, Sport Ancash, and he was horrible. Honestly, I think he had a horrible performance, and so I was actually surprised to see him continue in Segunda División, and I was a bit surprised. I'm not surprised because of the result, Hualgayoc is a very, very rough terrain, right? So obviously they were going to win by a lot. But the fact that he scored 3 goals and that he seems to be such a good forward all of a sudden kind of pisses me off a little bit as a fan because he could have done that well the previous season, But anyways, I think that we got to give him at least some credit, right? It wasn't just Rui Diaz, it wasn't just Emmanuel Herrera, it was also Ronaldo Calera in second division.
Yeah, interesting. I did not do my research on him, actually. So very, very, very interesting story there. I believe the other stand-up for Sporting Kass I remember was Christopher Charun, at least from what I remember. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if you agree with that. You are the Guaracino, so you can confirm me on that.
Yeah, no, Charun was the other one, and honestly, it was just. I can go into what happened with Sporting Kass last year another time, but I was very disappointed, obviously.
Yeah, especially after they barely missed out on promotion that one season. I believe they had the same problem that Hull City had in the Premier League last year, where they just didn't have that many players, and there was nothing they could have done. It was a disaster in the whole, and it was just let's see what they do in Copa Peru this season. That's for another time. Christopher Peter, what results surprised you in this one?
Yeah, I am not Christopher. I am Peter. Just clarification for that.
Christopher Charun.
Well,
I was going to say Vizcardo, but
but anyway, I think you said it though. But Los Caimanes tying with Sport Victoria was one, but it wasn't so much that; it was kind of who scored. Michel Asobo, who another African player starting life in Peru very, very well, got the brace that sealed the point for Los Caimanes, and they actually have a couple of African attackers along with I believe he's a Nigerian, but Enahoro.
Tuno, he's been in Peru for years now, so he's
perennial African in Peru.
Yeah, I believe the one that scored the brace is new, but Tunde Enahoro has been in the even in Primera División. He's been in this country for many years now, so.
Well then, understandable. But yeah, I mean, a Sobo just out of nowhere. And I actually tweeted this over the weekend when Ake Lobo was terrorizing, well, I shouldn't say terrorizing, but having another good game against Universitario, that it wouldn't surprise me at all if more Peruvian teams look towards scouting in Africa more because of the success of some of these players. And I know Sobo's, a lot older than Lola is, being 25, but I mean, starting off life in the Segunda División with the brace, helping out your team get a point, a surprise point at that. I mean, good on you.
There's a lot of African players in general. There's Herbert Cambo as well, who plays for Catolao. I almost forgot there for a second, but but we've not actually had a good African. Akeloba is probably the candidate to be the next best one, or at least the best one we've had this century. But the last good one we've had was Prince Amoako when he played for Sporting Cristal, and only for Sporting Cristal, because after that he wasn't very good. And Municipal, I believe his second season too. But he was the last actually good African we've had. Akeloba is on course to become the next one. Still going to give him time. I think he's very good so far, but I want to see if he can do this the whole season. That's for another thing. Now, as for the results that surprised me, the only one that really, really surprised me is Sport Victoria, because Cesar Vallejo, I mean, that kind of surprised me. I kind of expected them to win, but I didn't expect them to absolutely slaughter their opposition like a lot of expecting them to. So I don't think that it was that surprising, because Cesar Vallejo can drop points. They dropped points in the first match last season as well against, I think it was Sport Victoria, funnily enough. And this match doesn't tell you anything. Cesar Vallejo is going to be a machine this season. I have no doubt about that. And as for Copsol have a few interesting players. The one who is notable is Germano Lemano, who is the worst striker in existence, but he's actually pretty decent as a winger for the Segunda División. As a striker, you're not going to get worse than him. But as a winger, he's actually all right. So, yeah, I paused that for a second because I thought everyone froze there. I thought the thing was going to log me out again. No, Copsol, I don't think they'll fight to go up, but they might finish top 7. I think they're definitely, like Christopher said, they're a serious organization. They have youth teams. They invest a lot of money into their club. It's kind of like a business. So Copsol is definitely going to bother some teams, but I don't think they're going to go up. Now, as for the result of the first, we thought it was okay. Manes, Diego Chavez, who used to play for Lau. Yes, that same Diego Chavez, the right back. He's not playing for Los Caimanes, but he did not debut in this match. I said on Twitter he did, but no, I was wrong. He didn't. And I saw a bit of this match actually, because I had some time to kill, and I really wanted to watch Segunda División the first day, because to be honest, I wasn't that interested in the Lau versus San Martin game. I'm not gonna say I wasn't interested, but I wasn't. I prefer to watch Segunda División because it was the first match, and I don't think it was a critical match for me to watch in the Primera. So I chose this one, and I saw a little bit of it. Look, there was a grotesque error in the defense for the first goal, or the first Locamanes goal, and then they got a second. They got a second right before I turned it off because I have to do something else. And the Sport Victoria they should be delighted they got a draw because the Locamanes are probably going to fight relegation this season. And as for the other result, I did say I was reserving comments on Alianza Atletico. I looked at their squad. I did not see their game, but I looked at their squad, and my goodness, it is nothing. It is nowhere near what they've lost pretty much all their players, and none of the players stand out to me. Most teams have Primera División veterans like Copsolas, Alemanos, Cerrejos, plenty of them like Wally Sanchez, Andy Pando, Juan Aurich. Has Excel Rosales. They have Joel Herrera, and Joel Herrera I think that's his name. It's Herrera. It's something with a J, but I can't remember if it was Joel. And yeah, they all have a few veterans, but Alianza they got none. They have nobody. I have not heard of a single one of the players. Like they could be good, but just because you don't have a player doesn't mean you don't know who they are. It doesn't mean they're not good, but I sincerely don't think that it's going to be any better than what the other teams have. I got to see them myself first, but it just seems to me they didn't want to participate in the Segunda División, and it just seems to me they're not really interested in winning this competition, and they just rather start from scratch. That's what I think, and we'll see if they're actually any good in their first match of the season. So, yeah, Christopher, do you have any comments to add, Peter, about all this?
Yeah, well, I have two comments to add really fast. First of all, we should remind our listeners and viewers that the format has changed a little bit, and every match really matters from the beginning, because it's not only that the first team, the team that ends in first place in the overall table, going to be the one that goes directly to first division, but we have this new system that's very similar to Liga MX, right? With a playoff phase, and also interestingly, the second and third place in this bracket, the second and third place teams will also get a playoff against Copa Peru teams for extra first division slots for next year. So it looks like we're going to be expanding the first division next year. So I think that's going to make for an interesting dynamic, something that we should look out for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I believe we did not actually mention that in the pod before. We definitely mentioned it on Twitter, but on the pod, I believe we did not mention that because I believe it was near the national team matters, so there's no time for it. But now that the Segunda has started, we definitely have to mention it. It's an important part. It's something we've been asking for many years, most of us, that we need to have a second slot in 3 or 4 relegations from the Segunda. Some people say Copa Peru should have one to the Primera. I've already stated my opinion on that, which I think I like it. I like the Copa Peru, and I think it's unique. I mean, it's not like you're going to get relegated from the Segunda, expect to go up to Copa Peru because there's so many clubs, so it's actually a disadvantage. So I think it works out. Now, I do want to say hello to Absalom News, who's in the chat. Says Enajoro was not a success. He was average for Cobrasol and was awful for Universitario. I was going to mention that he was going to play. He did play for Universitario, and he was not very good. And I actually forgot to play for Cobrasol, so thank you for reminding me there. And there was another African Universitario in the mid-2000s. I think his name was Nana Eshun or something. But, yeah, he was also not that good. Peter, do you have anything else you want to add before we move on to Alianza Lima matters?
No, I think we should probably maximize as much time as we possibly can for the Alianza Lima matters, because I feel like we're going to go down some dark roads here. So
it's not that, Peter. It's just that you have a lot of ranting to do, and we're all looking forward to it. So
yes, I do.
I'm just thinking if we have anything else left in the Segunda. No, there's a few games on Thursday. I guess we can quickly go over them. And then we can go to Alianza Lima because Alianza Lima is going to take up pretty much the whole pod as well as one of the questions. So we will just read them out. Los Caimanes versus Sarroejo, Copsolas, Guaral, which is kind of a derby actually. Manucci, Juan Aurich, Willy Serrato, Hualgayoc, Cienciano, Atlético Grado. That's one I'm interested in. Sport Loreto, Alfredo Salinas, and Santa Rosa Sport Victoria. What do you guys think on this one? I'll go to Peter first for this one. What games interest you there, and what do you expect from those?
Well, there are a couple. I mean, look, Atletico Grau obviously starting off the season with a win. They were promoted from Copa Peru. Great start for them. So that's probably one match I'm going to be looking forward to because, I mean, wouldn't it be something if they got the back-to-back promotions after suffering heartbreak at the end of last year?
And hold on, I'm gonna interrupt you for a second. There's something I forgot to mention. Atletico Grau have a player that do interest me. His name is Anthony Lavalle, he played for Alianza Lima last year, and another player they've let go, and they haven't given a chance. We'll go on to all those matters later, but I do want to give a kind of a foreshadowing to that. So here you can keep going.
Yeah, no problem. And then the other ones, Carlos Manucci, Juan Audich, just because I have a connection with Juan Audich. They, of course, got the 1-0 win over Cerrato on the weekend. So I'll be looking out for that one. And then lastly, probably the Caimanes Cesar Vallejo match. Caimanes, of course, as usual, do have some young players to watch. A few of them got a start over the weekend. So it'd be kind of nice to see how they do against one of the promotion favorites, especially from a more sort of, I guess, bigger angle.
And Christopher, how about you?
I think all those matches that are happening between those northern teams are going to be interesting to see. I think we're seeing some mini derbies that really hadn't happened in years and years in any division of Peruvian soccer. And now it's so exciting to see all these teams end up in the second division. So personally, I think the Grau and Manucci game is going to be a highlight for me. Also, on a side note, I am going to mention that the Segunda División got new TV sponsors, right? Which we all hope was kind of a step forward, something better that would force the division to be more professional when scheduling. But unfortunately, looks like they have taken the money and ran because, like, honestly, nothing's changed. And now, at least before you could catch a game or two on TV, right? And it seems like this year it's all going to be, cell phone shots that we're going to be seeing for elites, especially for those of us that are far away. So,
I'm not going to offend you on that one, but I'm going to tell you that basically, if you look really hard in some Facebook, I have a lot of Facebook contacts, so I could easily send you them. But I'm talking to the people who are listening. You could easily find them on Facebook Live. Just look for them and you'll find them. I don't really get that TV sponsor thing because Gol Peru said they were going to show it and they did not. They've been pumping up for 3 weeks. Oh, we're going to show Segunda. We're going to show Segunda. Segunda comes, there's a game on, but there's no Primera game on, and they did not even bother to show it. So it just doesn't make any sense to me. So yeah, it looks like they took the money and ran. Totally. So the match I'm looking forward to is Guaral vs Copsol. Because it is kind of a derby, and I have some exciting young players like Dylan Caro, who's actually in the under-20 squad for the Peruvian national team. He's quite good. I've seen him play once. I've seen him play twice. Yeah, and he's quite a good player. I'm still trying to get a grip on his position. He's kind of a mix between a left back or not left back, a fullback and a winger. Still trying to get a grip on his position because I've only seen him. I've actually seen him once, but I've seen like half the other game, so I kind of lied and I kind of didn't. So he's quite an exciting player, but yeah, just the presence of the game because we don't have many local matches outside of we have 2 derbies in Lima and the Primera, and then outside we don't have many local matches. We just have UTC versus Comerciantes and Melgar versus Binacional. Whereas in the Segunda there's a lot more, so it's an exciting prospect, I think. Even if one team has fans and the other one doesn't. So it's one that interests me. And I'm also keen on seeing how Cesar Vallejo react to the draw against Copsol because Caimanes could be a surprise. I mean, like Peter said, they have a few young players. I said they're gonna fight bottom half, but I can't say I'm familiar with them much. Many people seem to think they're going to fight bottom half, but maybe they will surprise them. So, yeah, I do want to say I went to the Chalaca the other day, and I saw the subs, and Hernan Carti actually came on for Los Caimanes. Now, he's a son,
really?
But he's playing for Alianza Lima still. So, his son is playing for Alianza Lima, so it makes me wonder if Germán Carti, who finally retired last year, came out of retirement just to play again at like 48 years of age. It just doesn't make sense. I don't know who that is, but I gotta do some research on that. I'll find that in due time, and I'll report it to you. Now, before we move on to Alianza, there's one more thing. Absalon News is in Campeónico still in Juan squad. Yes, he is. And I do actually quite rate him. Peter knows I've talked about him in the past. I do quite rate him. I think he's a good player, and I think that's the only reason he's going to show that he's a lot better than where he's at right now, because I thought he was really underrated last year.
I'm shocked. Sorry, Brent. I'm actually shocked he actually didn't end up leaving Juan Aurich for another club in the Primera, in all honesty. Like, he started what? He pretty much started close to 40 games last year, if not more. And was really solid in all of them. He's still quite young, 22. So, you would imagine a team would have taken a punt on a 22-year-old Peruvian who has pretty decent potential.
But, yeah, they ended up going for Archimbo instead, but I don't know. I read both players, but I like Campeónico a little better. So, anyways, now this pod is going to be dedicated, now that we're done with Segunda, this pod is mostly going to be dedicated to what is going on in Alianza Lima. Now, let me put it straight. This is what I think, and I'm just going to put it in point form about some of the topics we're going to be discussing and some of the questions. Now, I think that Alianza Lima is, first of all, Bengochea is a coach that, he can work for some sides, but his style of play, I think, is ruining Alianza Lima's identity, and he's being found out without Luis Aguilar, because Luis Aguilar is a very Uruguayan player with quality. He was a quality player. So he was able to perform to the style that Bengochea really desired. He's not there anymore. And he got one Uruguayan, Lemos, who in my opinion is not very good. An Argentinian, Thomas Costa, who is good, but he's not the same player as Aguilar. I'm not just talking about quality. I'm talking about his position, his style. It's like people try to hype him up as the Aguilar's replacement, but he's nothing like Aguilar. That's the thing. And they got an abundance of midfielders, and including, I suppose they got him last season, but they got an abundance of midfielders to try and replace Aguilar, and it's just not working for them because they focus too much on that instead of spending what they should be spending in fullbacks and just one number 10 instead of getting players that are nothing like Aguilar. It doesn't make any sense. And I just think Bengochea is ruining Alianza Lima's identity overall. And I'll go to that in a second. I'm going to ramble on about that in a little bit because I do have some strong thoughts on that. Peter, you have a lot to say about Alianza Lima, so I'll let you go first. What do you think is going on with the club at the moment?
Oh, my God. Where do we even start? It's amazing that this team won the title 5 months ago, and we're talking about them as if like they're in like a Universitario-style crisis. But, in a lot of ways they kind of are, because when you go from the high of highs to this, and you don't replace those outgoing players, Aguilar, as you mentioned, they lost 20 goals around there with the combination of Aguilar, Pajoy, and Pacheco. They haven't really replaced it. And you mentioned Bengochea, trying to, shoehorn all these midfielders in while the fullbacks are still very weak, much like they were last year as well. The difference being the midfield is just not at all good enough to actually be able to cope, and that leaves the defense even more exposed. On top of that, the tactics are very questionable. Going to Palmeiras and not really setting your team up to counterattack all that well, not having a creative outlet. Again, a lot of mediocrity in the midfield. His substitutions are off. And I think after the Sporting Cristal loss, he sounded like a man who, frankly, did not want to be there anymore. He said that he couldn't get a reaction out of his players, which is a pretty, if that isn't a bad sign, I don't know what is, excuse me. And, obviously the whole thing with Kevin Quevedo, which we're going to get onto later, the fact that that went public for the first time, that probably says a lot about Bengochea's future and the fact that he probably just doesn't really care anymore that these things get out. And the fact that in this emergency meeting that he apparently had with Alianza's board on, I believe it was Monday, that he basically said, I'd be willing to leave if the situation doesn't improve. And there are some players who I'm very disappointed in. Now, look, you can obviously look at the players, some of the players not being good enough. But when you have a player like, and I'm going to appeal to Christopher on this one, when you have a striker like Posito in the team who maybe might not score as many goals as someone like Emmanuel Herrera, if you give him the right service, he will definitely, in that team, get you a pretty decent return. And the fact that you don't have a creative player or an outlet and or don't play him enough, talking players like Holberg, Quevedo, of course, before the suspension, then of course he's going to be isolated and he's going to struggle. It's just par for the course with a striker like that. So yeah, I feel like a lot of the issues are Bengochea related and also player recruitment related. And before I wrap up, I'm going to also appeal to Brian on this one, because the fact that he is not giving young players a chance, Osling Mora, while they're struggling, is even more curious, I feel. So all that put together, and frankly, I think Bengochea, if you were to look at kind of the main culprit here, it might actually be him.
Hey, now I'm going to go to Alianza Lima before I go to Christopher, because we're at Alianza Lima, but what I meant is what my points about Bengochea and ruining the identity of the club. Firstly, these young players that do get a chance are rotated way too much and are not gelled into the side. I'm going to go over to Manchester City for a second. Look at Pep Guardiola. He bought all these young players like Leroy Sané, Gabriel Jesus. Gabriel Jesus is an undisputed starter, but Sané is. And Sterling was already there, but he tried to basically gel them in to he basically tried to gel them in to become a good side, and look where that's taken them. Yeah, they got eliminated today in the Champions League. So they're about to win the Premier League, and they're going to go down as one of the best Premier League sides in history. So that's what Bengochea should do. That's what Troglio did with Sucho. Sucho, he saw talent in Sucho. He slowly tried to gel him into the side. I mean, Sucho's already got years of experience, but he was never an undisputed starter until Troglio got there. So he tried to gel him into the side, and it ended up working in his favor. I mean, he's having a poor season now, but last season he was excellent, and he got a pro call because of that season, basically. So I don't get why Bengochea is doing this. I don't get why he doesn't try gelling players into the side. He's done it with the fullbacks, but he's playing them out of position, playing center midfielders and fullback because he doesn't have anyone else. He doesn't want to sign any. So it just baffles me. And I do want to say that well, I lost my thought. I do want to say that Quevedo is the example of the player that should have been gelled in, because I mean, if he had the discipline problems this whole year, then fair enough. I'll give Bengochea that. But if he hasn't, and it was just that one time, why isn't he an undisputed starter? I mean, he can play in anywhere in attack. He can play in striker too. Actually, he can play basically anywhere in attack, and he's not been gelled in. He's not. This is supposed to be his year, and Sucho has been gelled in. He's the undisputed starter for Lau. And it's not like they didn't have any option either. Like, Troglio wanted him to play. And that's what Bengochea has to do with players like Quevedo, players like, I guess Kevin Ferreira is kind of getting there up there as well, where they really need to slowly get into the side instead of rotating constantly. And another thing before I go on my last point, Gabriel Leyes, he's done nothing for the team. He scored those 2 goals to win the championship, but he's a really bad player. He's not a good goal scorer. And Posito, who's been scoring goals in most of his games he's played, what more does he have to do to play a game? I mean, I'm not a Alianza Lima fan, but it does worry me that such an iconic club is being run so poorly. The last thing I wanted to get over about the club's identity is I'm worried that Alianza Lima is going to become like Independiente Santa Fe became in Colombia. I mean, yeah, the Independiente Santa Fe are successful, but they get booed by their fans most of the time now because they just put on such a dull display all the time. And it's not always successful. With Alianza Lima, I don't think it's going to be successful continental competitions because Colombian football is a lot higher than where we are on the ladder right now. So I do think that this is a worry because Peluso, he won the Copa Sudamericana with Santa Fe, but he then went on to give that club an identity to be extra defensive, super defensive. And I do want to say the current manager of Santa Fe is also Uruguayan, but the one before that I believe was Colombian. I actually think it was Alexis Mendoza, if I am correct, who just got sacked by Junior. And I'm worried that's what the club is going to become because if Bengochea doesn't leave, because that's the kind of identity that he's transforming the club into. So I'll let Christopher go on at this point. If what do you have to say about this whole thing?
Well, I think it's obvious that there's a few players that at this point need to go. I think Leyes needs to go. I don't see him having much of a future in the team. I think Lemos, it's quite a controversial topic with the fact that they are actually related with Bengochea. And that was something that was disregarded by most at the beginning of the season because everybody was going off the hype of uh, of winning the championship and all of that at the end of last year. But now it's starting to become obvious and apparent. People are starting to realize this. What is this guy doing here? You know, why did he bring him here from Uruguay? What was the point of that? So I honestly don't know if Bengoche needs to go. I think um, he might be tired, but we all go through our hard times. I think this has been Uche's trial by fire. I think that if he has any aspirations of becoming the next Uruguay coach, he needs to show some resilience, he needs to show some patience. And I don't, and because of that, or at least partially because of that, I don't think he's going to go. I think that a lot more is going to, a lot is at stake at this Clásico that we're going to be seeing this week. And a lot of the future decisions are going to depend on that. But trying to put myself in his shoes, um, I think for example, the decision that he made with Quevedo and making that public, that was kind of a last ditch effort to try to solve things in the club. And hopefully, if he wins tomorrow and some stuff happens within the next 2 weeks, this can be nothing but just a bump in the road and a smooth transition into a more stable Alianza Lima. Let's remember that last season, it wasn't up to this point, but he was highly criticized too. About the same time last year, Alianza Lima was doing poorly, right? And they were able to turn that around. Not as poorly as now, obviously, but they were able to turn that around and win the championship. So I have some faith in Bengochea now. I don't think he's going to go. I think that he might stay, but obviously a lot of that's going to depend on tomorrow's match.
I do think before we go, Peter, I do think that I don't think they're going to sack him now because he didn't win Alianza Lima's first title in 10 years. I mean, say what you want about Peruvians being as impatient as Italians or the Greeks, but it's sorry to any Italians or Greeks, but it's I don't think he'll be sacked. I think Alianza Lima's board is more serious and that more patient. There's patient as Laú and Cristal's board. Those are the three most patient. It's not like Garcilaso, they sack you in 2 seconds. Here, I do think they'll give him some time. I think it's down to him if he wants to leave or not, because I really do hope he leaves because I don't like the identity that he's giving the club at the moment. I've already rambled on about that. Peter, did you have anything to say? Because I saw you were about to say something.
Yeah, well, just a quick point. That emergency meeting, Leis and Lemos are going to be 2 players who will be leaving the club should Alianza, or I guess when Alianza does not progress to the next round in the Libertadores. So those will be 2 players leaving. The third one, they haven't named yet. You assume maybe someone like Miguel Araujo, who is getting a lot of interest from Europe, might be the third name, and his deal expires in December. So obviously clubs can approach him and sign him for free, or they could obviously work out a deal with Alianza before and just sign him away for a little bit of money. The other point I wanted to add, which I think Christopher mentioned, and it kind of ties in with what you said as well, Brian, in that, yes, last year there were a couple of issues. Now, the counterpoint to that is the squad was a lot better and was a little more tailor-made to Bengochea's tactics. This one, not so much. And the quality there is lacking. And I feel like I think in the league, Alianza will still be relatively okay. I still think that they'll end up kind of fighting for the title, despite this little slow start here. But there's no doubt that they need quality. And in the Libertadores, I mean, his tactics or lack thereof get figured out almost instantly. Yes, they got the draw against Boca, but I mean, there was a little bit of luck in the fact that there was bad finishing and whatnot. And Brian, you also mentioned it too, the integration of young players. Alianza has one of, if not the best academies in Peru. You have this abundance of young talent to choose from. It's like, and Bengoche is just not using it. It's like having a Ferrari and keeping it in your garage, or just taking out your old 1977 Dodge Challenger out of the garage instead. It really is crazy to me that he doesn't actually give some of these young players more time, because maybe that could, give a kick up the rear end to some of the older players and motivate them, because, the younger players are going to come in, give it their all, and try to work hard. But it also does come down to the fact that he has to give them an extended run in the team, because if you keep taking players in and out of the 11, how do you expect them, to develop properly? You can't, and that's the bottom line.
How do you identify a club? How do you identify a starting 11? I mean, you should rotate players, a few of them. We shouldn't rotate them too much. I mean, I think Barcelona today kind of proved that you should rotate players every so often, what Valverde didn't do. But I think managers like Ramon Diaz or Juan Carlos Osorio, they show that you shouldn't rotate that much, because then that causes problems. Now, as for I've also seen problems with the team chemistry, because against Palmeiras, they did have a few dangerous chances, but most of the time there's this open space. All they did was shoot from a really difficult angle and a really badly powered shot. So I do question, like, what's going on in that dressing room. Maybe the players are not getting along or anything. And it's weird. Holberg is one player that I kind of like, kind of don't. I mean, I like his agility, and I like his ability to beat players into the box, but I don't like he's a bit selfish, because I see him taking a lot of shots from difficult angles, and I don't think he's for the national team. A lot of people were calling him. I also thought that he was possibly going to get a chance. I put him on preliminary squad, but as the matches go on, I'm starting to see that maybe not. I don't think he is that. I don't think he's that deserving of it, because there's flaws in this game, and those will get exposed at a higher level. So, I'm seeing problems in the team chemistry, and they're not scoring at all. They scored 3 against Ayacucho, but before that they didn't score very many in a run of matches. Peter, go back to you on this one. Do you see any problems with that, considering what I mentioned?
Yeah, the Holberg thing is interesting to me, because I do think that he is definitely, starting caliber, but then you also look at it and think, okay, is this current Alianza team's underachievement sort of boosting our opinion of him? Like, is he really a little bit, not overrated in a way, but maybe the fact that he's performing decently well in an underachieving team, is that hyping him up more than, basically how much he should be hyped? That's the question for me. The goal scoring is, I honestly lose track of how many times the attackers get rotated, and that's a massive problem. Much like with the defense, if you do not have that chemistry up front, then it's not going to work at all. Yes, they've managed to score off set pieces, or get an own goal here and there. Maybe Carlos Asquez goes rambunctiously into the box and just fires a shot, and eventually it goes in. I don't know, but there's nothing there. And again, maybe there are morale issues. The fact that Bengochea basically admitted as much after the Cristal match probably speaks to that. But that kind of goes back to my doubts about him, and that if you can't get an 11 together for an extended run of games, then, no wonder why the team is struggling pretty much everywhere across the pitch.
Christopher, do you have anything else to add before I go on a few other points?
Well, first of all, I'm running out of battery, so if I disappear, I'm going to try to come back. But the comment that I actually had was, kind of going back to for example, the Peru national team, that the starting 11 like out of memory. We can recite them all in order, and we would know exactly who they are. And to me, that kind of has to be the goal that a team should try to achieve for some unity on the pitch and off the pitch. And unfortunately, all this rotating is really hurting Alianza Lima, just like you guys said. So, hopefully by bringing some fresh blood in soon, as soon as possible, right? Once the transfer window opens again, that will solve some of that problem.
Yeah, no, I don't understand what Bengochea is doing, because first of all, the lineups are awful. I know Posito's kind of a Peruvian Waltz favorite by this point, but I do generally think that he needs to start, because he's the best striker they have. They insist with Leyes, and he's not getting the job done. It's that simple. He's not getting the job done. So why don't you put on Posito, who is actually scoring a few goals. I mean, you could argue all you want about his quality, but he has the spirit and he's getting the goals. He's being effective. So why not start him? He got signed as a backup to a player that should be a backup. Let me put it that way. And yeah, no, I don't get it. Asquith shouldn't start either. Asquith is just terrible these days. Like I said, there's an identity problem with Bengochea and him because, like we mentioned last week, what position does he even play in? We don't even know. No one knows. I mean, I would bet in transfermarket.com. You can look up Asquith, and I'm probably wrong, but if you look up Asquith and has a center back position or a center midfield position, that is a lie. He should be in all central parts of the pitch. Someone edit that and put all central parts of the pitch for Bengochea. Striker, defensive midfielder, center back, attacking midfielder. Put everything there because you don't know what he is. Genuinely.
Correct.
Okay, well, you've heard my rambling about Alianza. That's my opinion. Peter, do you have anything else to add? Christopher, do you have anything else to add before we move on to the questions, which is also related to Alianza Lima?
No, I think we might be good. So I'll just read it out. Abel Gamarra at Abelanda81 asks, and we kind of touched on this before, now we'll go more in depth on it. Do you guys agree with how Pablo Bengochea dealt with the Kevin Quevedo situation? To those who maybe didn't see it, Quevedo was left out of the team against Sporting Cristal because he was late to training. So Bengochea decided to punish him by leaving him out of the team. And boy, did that kind of backfire because they really could have used him. Probably wouldn't have started anyway, so I don't know why I'm even saying that. But regardless, look, if this is true, which I mean, I guess it must be because he spoke about how this isn't the first time. It happened a lot last year. They kept it under wraps. Now they figured that this was kind of the way to go. If that's the case, I agree with it because you can't let a young player run amok. And if he's being unprofessional, if he's being indisciplined, if he's not showing up to training on time, doesn't matter how good of a player you are, you have to follow the rules. And you don't want a player, I mean, how many examples have you seen of Peruvian players misbehaving, both at the national team level and in the league? And for a player that talented, you don't want to see him go off the rails. I know it's only maybe being late to training, but you never know if that can escalate. So the fact that Bengochea dealt with it like this, even though it hurt the team, I think I will give him credit for this. It does speak to the fact that he does actually kind of care about the kid and his future, not to mention that he's going to put the morals ahead of the team's result for that weekend, as big as it was. And then as for Quevedo, he did apologize, said it in a video to the fans of Alianza. Hopefully this is a lesson learned for him, and he ends up putting his head down and actually showing up to training on time and being basically what a professional footballer should be, and that is disciplined all the time and having a good attitude.
Christopher, why don't you go first before I go on?
This might be my last comment, but yeah, I would agree 100% on that point. I think that sometimes you have to bring on a little peer pressure, you know, make it public, especially if I want to believe that he tried as much as possible to correct the problem. And like Peter said, we've had way too many examples of young Peruvian players that have gone by the wayside because of indiscipline. So I really hope that he has learned a lesson and that he takes his career as a professional footballer serious because of this. So to me, like you were just saying, Brian, that maybe he, like Bengochea, doesn't care about the team anymore. To me, that actually his actions actually show the opposite, that he actually does care. And that, you know, I want to think that was the only solution that there was left to make it public. And then just to speak on one more thing, there is people that are good with kids, like Troglio, and there's people that are not that good with kids, so like Bengochea. And so maybe you know that was his way of solving it. Maybe someone that is better with youth, like Troglio, would have tried to solve that a different way. I think Gareca has also shown a great example of trying to coach, be a coach, not just like a sports coach, but almost like a life coach with someone like Cueva. And you know that those are specific skills that some managers have and some others don't.
Yeah, I disagree with, or not disagree. I agree with everything you guys have said about Quevedo. First of all, I did not say I think Bengochea is I already forgot, but I said Bengochea was misidentifying the club, and I didn't say he did not care about the club. Those are two different things, but that's another thing. I agree with everything said. I don't really have anything else to add. I think Quevedo is a talented player who definitely needs to be careful. I don't want him to become another Manco, another Alexi Gomez. Alexi Gomez is one player that's going to be back here in Peru, and he's not going to go anywhere. It's going to be. I don't think he'll end up being a Johan Sotil, although Johan Sotil was really, really talented. I think he just ruined his career because of all the alcohol, all the ill discipline, and I think he become another Alexi Gomez. He might get a chance abroad just because he's really, really talented, and I hope he doesn't become like that because I do think he definitely has a future, but he needs to play for another team. That's what I think. He's not really. I mean, he was developed well by Bengochea last year since he signed, but I also think that the development has come to a stump, and he's not really improving anymore. So Peter, did we have one more question? Because you said we kind of got like an unofficial one.
Yeah, we did. Kevin Montalvan at KMontalvan7 basically asked us who the third player could be that leaves Alianza. I threw out Miguel Araujo. I don't know if you guys would maybe agree with that or not. Maybe there's another option. Maybe Quevedo even.
No, I think Quevedo. I think Quevedo is going to stay at Alianza. I don't think any teams are going to go for him yet. I think it has to be Araujo. I don't think it's going to be anyone else. And just because, I mean, how do I put this? Araujo is a player who's supposed to leave at the beginning of the year. He didn't. And with the whole situation, I can see him jump ship before things get too hasty. I mean, I'm not saying he's unloyal. I'm just saying that since it's the summer transfer window in Europe, I mean, if they offer him good sums, I think it's better for him to leave now. I think he knows that it's better for him to leave now than in the winter, where it's always a risk. So I think that he might be the third player because I think Alianza is going to go on in the group stages. I already said it, and I think they're going to finish bottom as well. So I think that Araujo's definitely the third one. Maybe an outside shout. I don't think Tomas Costa's leaving. An outside shout. Maybe I don't know. Maybe Gonzalo Godoy. That might be the other one. But
possible.
Sorry.
Possible. I was saying. I'm also thinking about it because.
Yeah, possible because it might be the 3 Uruguayan players. Although I think Godoy has been a success at Alianza Lima. I do kind of like him. I don't think he's fantastic, but I do think he is decent enough for this team. So I do think he's an identifiable, viable player. Christopher, if you're still there, do you have any other comments to add?
I do not think he is.
I think he's on a battery.
He is with us. He's going to have to get a charger. I can follow up on that though quickly.
We have a silhouette of him though, so you get to stare at a lovely silhouette there. If no one else is watching.
Yes, I do.
Okay. What do you want to say, Peter?
I mean, I think, it really is going to be Araujo if there is a third player for the reasons you mentioned. He was linked to Benfica in November. I don't think he wanted to risk, losing his World Cup place by moving to a team where he probably wouldn't have started right away. And he wanted to wait until the summer when his stock was high. So that's why he signed the 1-year deal with Alianza to stay, to keep his spot, keep playing, maintain his role within the national team, and then go in the summer. And I'm sure Alianza will get a decent amount of money for him, provided whoever buys him wants him. I know there were Lazio rumors, which his agent shot down. But there were European scouts watching him, Renato Tapia and Edison Flores at the recent friendlies. So I'm sure someone will come in for him and snatch him away from Alianza.
Yeah, no, I think the summer transfer window is the best time for him to leave because winter transfer windows are always a risk. So you shouldn't always trust those moves. And it's usually loans anyway. So, yeah, that's going to end the pod today. We're ending 10 minutes early because we don't really have any other topics to discuss. We talked about Alianza, the Segunda. I think we're pretty satisfied with this. We're reaching about 15 minutes almost. So, yeah, my Twitter is B_Bertie98. Christopher's Twitter is VIZ_FC. Peruvian Waltz is @PruWaltz. And Peter, what is your Twitter?
Nailed it, Brian. That was magnificent. My Twitter is @GalindoPW, as always.
Well, thank you for listening. Join us next Tuesday at the same time. It'll probably be at the same time unless Alianza plays next week. I haven't really checked. So if not, it's going to be a little later. But anyways, thank you for listening or watching, whatever platform you're listening on. And we'll see you guys next week. We're signing off.